Hi everyone, this is Maricia and I am the group leader for this week. I was assigned to read Chapter 5, Perceiving by Skinner. I took some notes and I'm also going to be speaking directly to you, but just bear with me. Um, so, starts off the chapter by asking, are we the perceiver or the receiver? He said that um, etymologically, we perceive the world by capturing it to take it in and possess it. This was on page 81. Most behaviorists would disagree with that viewpoint and argue that it is the initiating action of the environment rather than that of the perceiver. The reflex being an example. Both theories state that the environment penetrates the body, and that the only difference is being that with the mentalistic viewpoint, the perceiver is open to the environment, whereas in the stimulus response view, the um, the stimuli batters its way in. For example, you ever had somebody squeeze like the top of your knee, like right here? Um, for me, it's an operant behavior to jump, to kick. Some people might not have that reflex, but I do. Um, Stimulus control of operant behavior is the second section of the chapter. And when the stimulus is present, when a response is reinforced, the stimulus acquires some control over the response. And when a response is reinforced at a certain time, it's most likely to occur on a similar occasion. But if it is reinforced only when a specific property is present, then that property holds exclusive control through a process called discrimination. This is on page 82, Skinner. An example of this, I can recall when a group of my friends and I went to Mexico, Cancun for vacation, and one of my friends got violently sick because she got so drunk off of tequila that she was throwing up all night and all day the next day. And interestingly enough, to this day, when she smells tequila, she throws up, or at least comes very close to throwing up, but she can't drink tequila anymore because of that experience. So I use that example to explain that chunk of information because I see it as it's exclusively just tequila that makes her throw up automatically. So that's a good example of the discrimination process where she can drink vodka and other types of alcohol, and the scent of those alcohol don't get her sick. Um, Conditions affecting what is seen. In this part of the chapter, Skinner says when a stimulus is weak or vague, it is often clear that other conditions are affecting the probability that a person will see a thing in a given way. For example, if someone's expecting a very important phone call, they may hear their phone ring, whereas their phone isn't ringing. Um, that was given on page 84. Um, People perceive different things differently based on their history. For example, a basketball player will view a basketball game very differently than someone who knows nothing about basketball, because that person has a basketball history. Um, for example, Skinner writes, we recognize the importance of a history of reinforcement when we undertake to make it more likely that a person will see a particular thing, or, in other words, that he will engage in a particular kind of seeing. So, like I said before with the basketball example, based on your history, whether you are a professional at playing basketball or a professional dancer, you're going to view something differently versus somebody who has no history or knowledge on the subject that's being viewed. Um, Experience versus reality. Skinner says that behaviorism has been criticized in not being able to recognize how a situation looks to a person, how a person interprets a situation, or what meaning a situation has for a person. Skinner says in order to do these things, we must first examine the person's behavior with respect to the situation. We can only do this with her genetic and environment histories. Skinner also says that people respond to similar or different ways depending on the contingencies to the features of a given setting. Um, the important differences are among behaviors, and these in turn are explained by differences in past contingencies. Um, and then we go to the copy theory, where um, he just suggests that the copy theory suggests that we don't experience the world as it is. We experience copies of it. So, for example, um, if I see a work of art, I go to the Whitney and I see a work of art, and I go home and I didn't take a picture of it, I'm not going to experience the picture how I experienced it while I was at the Whitney. It's a copy of it that I have inside of me. That's what the copy theory says. But Skinner says that the copy theory is best argued when comparing it to visual stimuli, not because when you're trying to recall something seen, you have to think of a copy of it unless you can pull up the original thing that you saw. Um, the copy theory doesn't hold up as well when discussing something that you ate or something that you heard or something that you felt physically. I would have to refer to page 90 for this. Yeah. Skinner says the trouble is that the notion of an inner copy makes no progress whatsoever in explaining either sensory control or the psychology or physiology of perception. How am I doing on time? Moving on, seeing in the absence of the thing seen. Um, I think that studying would be a good example of a technique of calling to mind. Studying is also an explicit reinforcement. People have different techniques that work for them, whether it's flashcards or just writing notes and studying your notes. Skinner says that if we are reinforced, we are likely to engage in that behavior, even when there is very little in the immediate setting which bears resemblance. This is page 91. We may see something in its absence, not because we're reinforced right away, but because we are able to engage in behavior which is in turn reinforced. So, for example, I've been to Paris. Paris is one of my favorite cities. I would have to recall being there in order to tell a friend how to get to Versailles. So I see the city, I see Paris in my mind in order to call to mind, in order to tell someone how to get to Versailles. This process isn't exclusive to humans. A person is changed by the contingencies of reinforcement under which he behaves. Contingencies are not stored. And the change is that stimuli now control particular kinds of perceptual behavior. So that's interesting. And this was referred from page 93 and 94. Dreaming is perceptual behavior. There are multiple ways of getting someone to see when there is nothing to be seen. All these ways can be analyzed as the arrangement of contingencies with which strengthen perceptual behavior. So this chunk of information reminded me of an episode of Black Mirror season 4 where the insurance agent goes around to see if witnesses can recall a hit and run. And because there's a brewery in the area, she brings a bottle of beer when she's about to interview them and opens it so that they can smell the beer and recall what they saw. So that was an immediate connection I made. Um, I wrote that because there's a brewery on the site, the scent is in the air, so the beer works as an antecedent. The memory recalled is the response, and the consequence would be the insurance agent getting the suspect in the hit and run. So that was pretty cool. And lastly, the mind and stimulus control. Mind was associated with copy theory. Operationism led to the study of the process of discrimination rather than of sensations. A person was regarded as looking at or listening to the real world. Skinner, page 96. She went from reporting her perceptions and sensations to reporting stimuli. So this was a huge step in behaviorism, in psychology under that behaviorism, where people were being less mentalistic and more behaviorists, where they were using the environment as the reason for their as stimuli and not their perception of it. Because we don't have copies of things seen within us, all we can do is analyze the fact that we see things. It is possible to know when you have seen something before. So, you can recall, like I said, being at the Whitney and seeing a work of art, and then seeing that work of art at a whole other museum somewhere else at a different period of time, in a different period of time. You can recall that you have seen this before because it's something that happened already. So we're able to do that. The question I pose for my group members is describe a time in your life where based on the contingencies, your perceptual behavior had been changed. I can't wait to read the responses, and thank you for watching. Bye.